Hi there, good morning everyone. This is going to be pretty much of an in-depth discussion about SPSS. I'm going to discuss how this software program was introduced to the public by way of the movie Hidden Figures. One thing I want you all to understand that SPSS is essentially math. Math is one of the many languages with origins in ancient Africa. SPSS is a software program. It's an acronym that stands for Statistical Package for Social Sciences. It's used by researchers across disciplines and professionals across industries. This program is owned by IBM. IBM first began as it was founded as CTR in the 1800s. The most important thing I want you all to understand that IBM owns this program. It's not made available to the public. And the introduction in the movie Hidden Figures shows women, especially black women, as actual calculators who were performing mathematical operations using existing formulas, etc. So the applied use in social and behavioral sciences often starts with qualitative, quantitative, experimental, or empirical research. Okay, in the movie, you see the application, basic foundations for math, advanced application of math, including calculus, trigonometry, algebra, etc., by way of aeronautical and space engineering. That division is now NASA's Intelligent Systems Division. But to focus on social and behavioral sciences, there's a link provided there for you all to follow on IBM's website where you get an overall view of the actual program and product known as SPSS. Again, SPSS is used in research. There are different types of research. I don't want to get into all the individual designs. But when you're using SPSS, your goal is to conduct parametric or non-parametric testing. What does that mean? That means from whatever type of research design you are using in your formal research proposal, you're going to end up revealing an existing relationship, lending support to a theory after testing a hypothesis or hypotheses. And hopefully your effort with your formal research is to produce a conclusion which often ends with assumptions. Okay, that's how it's applied in the real world. This spans a target population. You may want to reveal a relationship between variables, independent, dependent variables, how things affect people. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the core feasibility studies. Okay, every industry in the West, whether it's healthcare, education, transportation, military, they all produce feasibility studies. These feasibility studies start as a basis or discussion with the government, federal, state, local, meaning city or county, that says, hey, here's what we want to do. This is why we want to do it. When we do it, these are the possible effects, outcomes, consequences of our actions. Okay, from this, you also have discussions of risk mitigation. Most importantly, this is how people get their funding. All right, let's move forward. In social and behavioral sciences and other industries and fields, you have funding by way of federal grants, loans, small business grants, loans. The results from these studies, whether feasibility studies, post-production studies, formal research proposals, or empirical studies, you have results that's going to lend support to or going to diminish support for previously applied methods. Okay, right now in healthcare, one of the main areas that people want to provide evidence in support of for proposals for desired funding involve food and pharmaceuticals. Okay. Also, in addition to this, if you can generate a reputable study with sound operational methods, chances are you will be awarded, especially if policies and regulations are already in your favor. Okay, so how does SPSS impact our environment? Just at the personal level, you got to think about socioeconomic engineering. Decades ago, people started saying social engineering, but one of the main factors that we can all see and that we're bearing witness to are neighborhood overhauls. This is by way of modification and gentrification. When you talk about modifying communities, neighborhoods, etc., you have to think about the changes that are going to be made in and about areas, particularly when it comes to gentrification. Most of the modifications occur in or about downtown areas near existing or planned venue sites, such as forums, arenas for professional sports teams, concert halls, etc. So in most of these places, you had affordable housing to urban communities. With this planning or this socioeconomic engineering, there's always a vast relocation of such populations out to remote rural areas. Hence why now in healthcare you have a lot of discussions about the lack of availability and resources or equitable resources across groups, particularly those who are new to remote rural areas, whereas there used to be availability of such resources, but now you're having a shift in populations because of relocation of certain communities. You also have a removal of resources from those areas and then an introduction of new resources in a modified or gentrified area. And another component of post results stemming from such research is expansion and infrastructure improvements. Again, I just mentioned some of those examples. So when you have major venue and arena development in metropolitan areas, let's say Inglewood, California, Denver, Colorado, Miami, Florida, or modifications to existing arenas with the introduction of let's say new members of an organization, particularly in Cleveland, Ohio, etc., you will have new improvements in infrastructure or expansion to existing infrastructure by way of desired transportation options, attractions for a new wave of tourism. And you also see this in the availability of your daily social exchanges and eateries, beverages, and shopping interests. So you will see new boutiques, you're going to see more mom and pop cafe shops, counter burger joints. What does this mean? This means business opportunities, okay? And most of these opportunities are extended to people of these new or newly modified communities versus those who had lived there for decades. And of course, this encompasses commercial versus residential development. After the urban populations are relocated, you will see modest home improvements in the areas in which they're relocated to. Most of the time there are prefabricated dwellings that are already in place to house them. So you have moderate or low to moderate subsidized housing marketed to these individuals versus multi-million dollar, or if not billion-dollar development back in the inner city, downtown, major metropolitan areas. Okay, in these areas where you have vast development or redevelopment, particularly in New York City, downtown Kansas City, Missouri, and other cities where you have a wave of people leaving the rural areas coming back into the city. Washington, D.C. is another example. Most of these properties start at or about $1 million. Now let's think of this in terms of civil engineering. How does this impact everyday people, your blue collar workers? Look at who's being repelled and who's being attracted. So when you redesign infrastructure to promote access to basic design services, you have to also think about complementary options that's made available to this new wave of people or people who are reintroduced to the area. This oftentimes involves eco-friendly options, free commuting options such as shuttles, especially during early morning and evening hours. That's to encourage people in these new communities to walk, bike to work, to get to work free, to sporting events, other entertainment options. And oftentimes during these hours, you don't have these resources available to people who are taking extra time to commute again from outside of the inner city major areas. So this provides stability